Welcome to the BetterPears Podcast. Join Dr. Jason Fujikawa for his insights on theology, philosophy, culture, and the verbal expressions we use to relate meaning and reality to one another. Make no mistake, this is a podcast for nerds, but particular nerds who are searching for old wisdom made ever new. To learn more about the BetterPears cultural empire, please visit BetterPears.com. Season 2 rages on this week with Bellum Gerere, a reflection on both war and its waging. But first, we have a few announcements. Yesterday was the annual March for Life in Washington, D.C. And to further the cultural restoration of the pro-life movement, BetterPears has launched a new If You Know, You Know mug, recalling the portion of the Hippocratic Oath, which pledges not to provide abortifacients to pregnant mothers. The excerpt is presented in ancient Greek, and in this way is a conversation starter which roots your pro-life reasoning to a classical precedent. Act now. These mugs are on sale this weekend at our cost of production and shipping through the BetterPears Market. A link to the mug is in the description of this episode. In other BetterPears news, in-person courses will be returning to the Oklahoma City metropolitan area later this winter and early spring. To stay informed on these offerings, please subscribe to our newsletter at betterpears.com. Also, as a reminder, the podcast has been establishing its presence on Rumble and YouTube, although new episodes of the podcast will continue to premiere on exclusively audio platforms and the website, where you can continue to read along at betterpears.com/preserves. Finally, the BetterPears Podcast is offered free through the wonder of the internet, but made possible through the continued contributions of our listener audience. Please consider a monthly contribution for as little as $10 per month, or a one-time contribution of whatever you can responsibly afford. Thank you for your continued patronage of attention, and, as we learned last week, Federal Reserve notes. And now, on with the episode. Season 2, Episode 3, Bellum Gerere. Idiomatically, Bellum Gerere is rendered to wage war in English. However, the literal sense is to wear war, or to bear war. Wearing war is an important nuance in the world of the ancient Romans, who thought of themselves, or at least projected themselves, as the people of the toga, and by extension, the people of peace. Cf. Virgil. Aeneid, Book 1, line 282. The toga, as some might know from personal experience, requires the fixing of the left arm to the chest in order to retain the elaborate fold or sinus of cloth from falling off the left arm or otherwise unraveling. No, when the Romans went to war, they literally went out of Rome proper, taking off the toga to put on their breastplates and other armor of war, assembling on the Campus Martius, the field dedicated to Mars, the god of war. In this way, the Romans wore the clothes of war when they waged it. Indeed, military presence within the walls of Rome was strictly limited to military triumphs celebrating a general's victory and defense of the city itself, as in the Second Punic War. Such exceptions required an act of the Senate during the Republic, and later the Emperor. The mixed dress of Augustus Prima Porta, the famous statue, bearing both military breastplate and toga, is an intentional faux pas, which came to signify the Pax Romana, the Roman peace, which was founded on Roman military strength. Bellum Gerere remains of philological interest to us in part because the meaning of war was transferred from the noun, or substantive adjective, bellum, to the verb gerere in later Romance languages derived from Latin. War is expressed in French, guerre, and in Italian, Spanish, and Portuguese, guerra, with nuanced variations in pronunciation. Our Anglophonic audience might be aware of the term guerrilla warfare, which, as the diminutive form suggests, employs small skirmishes or little wars instead of large pitched battles to achieve military objectives. The shift in meaning from bellum to gerere, however, was not the first in this Latin expression of war. The Latin noun bellum is perhaps more a substantive adjective derived from the three-termination adjective bellus, bella, bellum, meaning beautiful. I suggest that both this adjective for beauty and the noun for war are derived from or are somehow etymologically related to the Greek verb ballo, meaning to throw, cast, or hurl. Ballo persisted in Romance languages through the noun for ball and, interestingly, the verb ballare in Italian and bailar in Spanish, meaning to dance. Ballerinas and ballerinos throw themselves and their partners respectively. In a strange confluence of meaning, the dance fighting of the original theatrical production of West Side Story or the music video for Michael Jackson's Beat It are a beautiful, belligerent ballet. In reality, the connection is something of a mismatch. War disfigures what is beautiful in both body and soul. The trauma suffered and persisting for our veterans should give us pause and incite gratitude for their loss. War is neither sweet, nor becoming, nor beautiful. Throwing, in the sense of ballot, and ballistics, is nonetheless ordered, and by this sense founded in beauty. The beauty of ballistics is parabolic, in the sense that a projectile's center of gravity follows a parabolic flight path given the second half of Newton's first law of motion, that an object in motion remains in motion at constant speed and in a straight line unless acted on by an unbalanced force. Add to this the unbalanced and overwhelming constant acceleration due to gravity on Earth, and a projectile's flight path becomes relatively predictable if wind resistance is minimized or ignored to the annoyance of every engineer ever. The flight path is even graphically predictable, as it is symmetrical along the vertical axis of its zenith. The term parabolic can be rendered alongside the throw, as if one were viewing a projectile from a right-angle cross-section perspective. What goes up must come down, and it comes down at an inverse trajectory and acceleration to its upward launch. This observable reality of ballistics made it possible to anticipate trajectories for arched arrows and catapults, long before Leibniz and Newton discovered calculus and had cookies and something known as fruit and cake named after them respectively. So observable and predictable was this parabolic arc that archery as a skill or science was likely named for this arching ballistic property and not the shape of the curved bow, despite what Big Lexi might argue. Returning to the meaning of bellum, it is no little matter to take the ordered beauty of nature and apply it to the disfiguring theater of war. Was the expression Bellum Gerere an intentional oxymoron, pithy sardonic humor to soothe the wounds corporeal or otherwise required to found and defend Rome? Rome, an earthly city, was born in bloodshed, as St. Augustine argues in The City of God. Perhaps instead, bellum is to be borne as in carried as a burden, as one carries and preserves what is beautiful and treasured in life. There is a beauty and goodness of hearth and home, the beauty of mothers, sisters, and wives, for which men will endure great trials, suffering, and sacrifice to protect. There is a beauty, an ordered disposition of being and act, to a son growing into a man, wielding at last his father's sword, and stringing, with focused attention, his father's bow. Si vis pacem, para bellum. The views expressed by BetterPears contributors are theirs alone, and do not necessarily reflect the views of BetterPears, its parent company, or any company or organization affiliated with the contributors. For more information, to support BetterPears, or to shop for BetterPears merchandise, please visit BetterPears.com.